Okay, so we're back. We're going from no backbone to backbone. So chordata is the phylum of vertebrates. There are four characteristics that are unique to chordates. They have a notochord, which is a supporting dorsal rod that's replaced by the vertebral column during development in vertebrates. They have a nerve cord that contains a fluid-filled canal. They have pharyngeal pouches. Most vertebrates have pharyngeal pouches only in the embryonic state, but some of them do retain their gill slits until through adulthood. And then a postanal tail. And this is definitely during embryonic development for things like mammals or like humans. We have our postanal tail during embryonic development, but we don't retain our tail past that time period. So this is kind of a generalized embryo and shows those pharyngeal pouches, the dorsal tubular nerve cord, the notochord, and that postanal tail. So remember that the dorsal tubal nerve cord is going to be what's going to be like your spinal cord, and your notochord is going to be your actual spine. So, not all chordates are vertebrates, but all vertebrates are chordates. These right here are what we call the non-vertebrate chordates. So, their notochord does not turn into a spinal cord. We have lancelets and tunicates. Lancelets have knife-shaped bodies and retain all four chordate characteristics into adulthood. So they keep that notochord, the nerve cord, the postanal tail, and those gill slits. Tunicates are also called sea squirts, and they are the only chordate characteristic that remains into adulthood is those pharyngeal gill slits. They no longer have a notochord or the nerve cord or the postanal tail. So vertebrates have all four characteristics of chordates at some time, but do not necessarily retain them into adulthood. So while you can see that the monkey does retain its postanal tail, the frog does not. The first vertebrates were jawless fishes, and today there are three groups of fishes: jawless, cartilaginous, and bony. They're all adapted to life in water and perform external fertilization. So the female lays the egg, and then the male comes by and sprays the egg with his sperm, and they become fertilized outside of the body. Jawless fishes are cylindrical. They are smooth and scaleless, and they include things called hagfish and lampreys. So lampreys are on the left, and a hagfish is on the right. You can see that they are indeed cylindrical and scaleless. And nightmare fuel. Cartilaginous fishes are made up includes sharks, skates, and rays, and their skeleton is made up of cartilage instead of bone. They do still have gill slits. They also have something called a lateral line, and this lateral line is what allows them to detect movement. They can detect electrical currents using that lateral line. They also have well-developed senses. And then bony fish are the most numerous and diverse vertebrates. There are two types: the ray-finned fish, which is on the left, and the lobe-finned fish, which is on the right. Ray-finned fishes have a pair of fins that are supported by fin bony rays, which is where they get their name. And then lobe-finned fishes have those lobed fins that don't have bones through them. And these are the ancestors of amphibians. They're literally living fossils. The coelacanth is a lobe-finned fish, and we believed it was extinct until I think about 20 years ago when we discovered one off the coast of Asia. So we thought that they were gone, and really they were just excellent hiders. So next, let's talk about amphibians. I love amphibians. Their name means to live on land and water. It includes things like toads, frogs, salamanders, and newts. They have moist skin, 4 limbs, 3-chambered heart, and eyelids to keep their eyes moist. They also develop through metamorphosis. You can see the life cycle of the frog over there. They lay the eggs, it gets fertilized, it makes an embryo, then those hatch into tadpoles, and you can see them actually losing their post-anal tail, which is kind of incredible. Reptiles are going to be our next type of vertebrate we're going to talk about. It includes turtles, alligators, snakes, lizards, and birds. Contrary to popular belief, birds are reptiles. They have scales and well-developed lungs. They are also adapted for reproduction on land, just like other reptiles. All reptiles, excluding birds, are ectothermic, and that's what we would think of as cold-blooded. Birds have a very specialized lung system because they require so much oxygen for flying. And they have a 4-chambered heart instead of a 3-chambered heart. But they do retain a cloaca just like other reptiles. Finally, we have mammals. This is the last group of vertebrates we're going to talk about. They have body hair and milk-producing glands. And almost all are endothermic. There are 3 classifications. We have monotremes, and these are going to be our egg-laying mammals. It includes the echidna and the platypus. They also do not have what we think of as breasts with nipples. So they have basically modified sweat glands where they sweat milk, and then the young lick it off of the parent. We have marsupials, which are going to be like your kangaroos and your wombats. The only North American marsupial we have is the opossum. They have their young, and then they develop in the pouch. Their young are born very underdeveloped, and then their teats are inside of their pouches, and so that's where they get their milk from. And then the one we're most familiar with, which we fall into as humans, are placental mammals, and their young develop internally until birth, and then they are expelled along with the placenta. So here is some comparative anatomy for you. Fish, you can see, have the 2 chambered hearts, just a ventricle and an atrium. They have gill capillaries, which is where the oxygen exchange is going to occur. And then there are other capillaries where that oxygen is then exchanged with the other tissues in their body. And then it comes back to the atrium to be pumped through the ventricle, and then back into the gill capillaries to be oxygenated. Amphibians and most reptiles have a 3-chambered heart. They have the right atrium, and then the left atrium, and then the ventricles. You can see there that most of their blood mixes, and so it's not fully oxygenated when it reaches the other tissues. They do take in oxygen through their skin if they're an amphibian. And this, unfortunately, mixing of blood is not the most efficient system. Finally, you have some reptiles, birds, and mammals there on the right with a 4-chambered heart. And this does separate the blood so that you're pumping fully oxygenated blood to the rest of the animal. If you have any questions, let me know, and I will talk to you guys later.